Hey everybody, it's Marcia O'Connor here, CEO and founder of the O'Connor Group, and welcome back to Top 3, where entrepreneurs share their secrets and mistakes. Now, we talk a lot about entrepreneurs on the show, but we don't talk a lot about family-owned entrepreneurs. And today's special guest, Mike Longo Jr. from Seven Oil, is going to talk a little bit about that today with us. So sit back, enjoy, get that coffee in your hand, but be careful if you're driving out there, and enjoy today's version of Top 3. Mike Longo Jr. How you doing?
Good. Appreciate you having me.
My pleasure. This your first podcast?
Yeah. So during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I decided I was gonna have my own podcast, more around. I'm interested in health and wellness, and so I just had a little bit more time because
Yep.
we were stuck in the house, and
Yep.
I started doing some of that, and I really enjoyed it. But I haven't been on this side of it, and then we got really busy at work and back to the grind, you know.
Yeah, it's not something that you just show up tomorrow and do. You have to have some thinking behind it. And
Sure.
I had a dear friend of mine who had said for a year, "Hey, when are you going to get your podcast off the ground?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm working on it." And then one day he just kept asking, he's like, "When you doing this?" And I said, "Okay." So I literally met with my team. I said, "We're gonna have a plan of action. This is going off beginning of the year. No questions asked. If it's not perfect, oh well, we'll figure it out."
Yeah.
And now we've been doing this for 3 years. So it's crazy, but Top 3 has really have gained some traction out there. It's really a podcast for entrepreneurs and talking about the secrets and probably mistakes as well, because no, Lord knows I've had more mistakes than secrets. And we're here, and obviously you and I know each other because we do business together. And the good thing about us is that we have a friendship as well, and we talk a lot and just talk about life and handling people and things like that. But how do I mean, obviously you're a family business, but how do you think things are going today in this world? Because I think having a business is one thing, having a family business is another thing, but the economy and all is a little crazy right now. So what's going on?
Yeah. Well, knowing that you've been doing this so long and it's been so successful, I'm honored to be here and get to talk a little bit,
Of course.
about what we do
My pleasure.
and my experience. And um yeah, it's tough. Family business is unique.
Hmm.
I always say, like, being an entrepreneur, well, so my dad used to say this, being an entrepreneur is being a man on an island, right? Or man or woman, or,
Yeah.
and I've heard other people say, you turn around and it's just the wall.
Yeah.
There's nobody to help or ask questions to.
Yep.
And so, second generation or third generation or family business it's like the island off the coast of that island.
Yep.
There seems to be even less people to talk to about it
Yeah.
because it's so unique,
Mm-hmm.
and the chances of the business surviving through the generations just get smaller and smaller, right?
Yeah.
So, it's exciting though. Like, I don't think if I was doing the family business thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be doing my own business thing,
Yeah.
and I'd probably be asking my pop all the same questions that I ask him now.
Sure.
It would just be a little bit different. The stakes are a little higher.
Yeah.
I definitely feel a lot of pressure to do a good job for him, for my family,
Yeah.
and so there's that, right? And then there's just a normal landscape of business and what
Mm-hmm.
you have to deal with, and trying to hire people and scale and sales and ops and finance and
Oh yeah, that too.
learning. Yeah. Um, so yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's I think entrepreneurs are a little naive, and that's what makes them keep going, or at least
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
It was me just being naive about things, like, oh, you're telling me I can't do that, but I don't believe you, so let me
Right.
try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, failing is huge.
It is. I think it's also, you work for, in the business and with your dad and, you know, what kind of pressure is that? That's not easy. I don't have another person on my team in my family. Like I have, sometimes my son does work for me, but I already asked him, "You want to be part of the business?" And he said, "I want to do my own business." And I said, "Well, that's awesome. I think it's great,
Yeah,
but
smart guy.
yeah, but it's still, it's good and bad, because all that stuff you've grown, you want to give it off
Sure.
to somebody else, and at least you're ready to do that,
It's a double-edged sword. Be
Right,
careful with that.
right.
Careful what you wish for, right? So like I feel like my journey beyond this is probably going to be in some kind of consultative fashion
Hmm.
to first and second generations businesses to try to help. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it, and I've had to learn that and
Hmm.
understand it because it's it's like a marriage. It's a lot of compromising going on,
Yeah.
and I think the second generation has to, in a lot of scenarios, when the first generation is the serial entrepreneur, they almost have to lead,
Hmm.
in the sense that, like in our scenario, my dad, he's just a go getter,
Hmm.
right? But he didn't get the opportunity to be equipped with some of the knowledge that I was
Hmm.
because he worked hard to give me the opportunity to go to school and learn. Plus, technology changed, and
Sure.
so I used to get frustrated and feel the pressure, like it's not fair,
Right.
right? And I acted like a child, right? But you start to learn and grow up and realize, like, well, he should know, and he should lead me, right?
Hmm.
He's the leader. I should have somebody who has all the answers and can help me. And
Hmm.
even saying that out loud seems silly, but I started to learn, like, I have to be confident enough to put myself out there and try to lead by example in areas where maybe he just wasn't equipped and didn't have the opportunity to,
Yeah.
as the business was growing and I was sort of trying to challenge him on things.
Hmm.
It's a scary thing to challenge your parent in general, but then also feel like, well, I'm not sure. My gut's telling me I think this is the right thing, and I'm trying to get the data, but I don't completely understand how
Yeah.
to go about that yet. And so yeah, there was a really hard period of time for us where, at least for me, I put way too much pressure on myself and him at the
Hmm.
same time, and it,
Hmm.
it made the relationship difficult. But once I realized that, like, there's certain things that I need to be the leader on, and
Yeah.
and then he would start reciprocating, and kind of going back to the psychology. So I did a lot of therapy,
Yeah.
um,
Not alone. A lot of entrepreneurs do that.
reading
Yeah.
and asking and talking to, just reaching out to people like
Yep.
yourself or other
Hmm.
people who could help me. And then the CEO think tank was a huge eye opener for me because I don't think I I don't think I humanized entrepreneurs. Like, we're all scared. And I got
Yeah.
put in a room with a bunch of people who I was like, "Oh my god," I was in awe of,
Yep.
because maybe they were more successful or doing something different or something I didn't understand. And then, Charles is a good way of just kind of like bringing that trust barrier down. And
Yeah. She's amazing.
I'm like, man, these people are just screwing up as much as I am.
Yeah.
Like, it's
You're
all
like,
good. I
hey.
don't have to be scared.
Yeah.
I can just, and my confidence just went through the roof, and I stopped getting so upset when he would challenge me or didn't understand what I was bringing to the table, and I would just genuinely be more confident. And
Yeah.
I think that made him more confident in me, just naturally, like an
Yeah.
energy thing. And it started getting better.
Yeah.
And we also had, at the time, he had hired a consultant to kind of help with some of the financial stuff. And having a neutral third party who we both trusted
Hmm.
was massively impactful.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes you have to go
yeah,
outside your boundaries to see what you already have. So people
yeah,
don't always do that. And especially with family owned, because, here that person started like from nothing and now you have structure, you have people, you have things. It's a different company than it was when it got started. And, along the lines, if you want to grow, it requires different skills and different things, even though you're so passionate. Like I know that with mine. I just don't know everything, and I'm the first to admit it. But I also feel like a protector, and every decision we make affects 80 people now, not just me.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to do that.
And give
How's
that away,
yeah,
right? Give
yeah,
that trust, and
yeah,
it's like for him, it's like it's okay if it happens to me. I can
right,
deal with it. But I think on a certain aspect, him not wanting me to fail either.
sure.
Um,
What parent wants their kid to fail?
no, and it's tough, right? And
Yeah.
so I'd be like, no, like you
Oh,
gotta let me
sure.
do it, right?
But it is really hard just being a parent alone and seeing your kid do things that, oh, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And you didn't have to do that, but they have to go through that.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that really helped our relationship. I had kids, and then I was like, oh, dude, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Like I just remember being like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And then like saying that randomly, and he'd be
Right.
like, no, like, it's all good. So
Yeah.
that helped me really understand how to start changing the approach, and having that third party helped us, I think, just be more empathetic to one another.
Yeah.
And so now it just taught me a lot in life in general, in communications. We
Yeah.
acquire businesses now, so like
Yeah.
I sit across the table from people who are very much like him
Yeah.
and maybe don't have somebody to transition the business to.
Yeah.
And so that's really equipped me. All that experience around that relationship has
Yeah.
sort of equipped me for those conversations, to build trust with somebody who I'm trying to get them to
Yeah.
basically transition their business to me outside
Sure.
of their family.
Yeah. It's not easy. They're giving up their baby.
It is.
Literally.
Yeah.
Sweat and tears and long hours are put into these companies that people don't realize. And,
Yeah.
and you have to have a passion behind it. You have to, because otherwise what's your purpose? Right.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people, and I've seen so many M&As over the past 2 years saying, I'm done and I'm getting out. So a lot of people like yourself are, eating up these companies saying, I'll take you. Well,
Yeah.
let's pull them in and see what happens. But what I also find, they don't do enough due diligence.
Sure.
Until after the fact, and they don't look at all the numbers. And I said, how did you buy that without knowing the numbers? And
Yeah.
they're like, I don't know, it just sounded really good.
It's
And
exciting.
and to me, I'm such a researcher and dive data person that
Yeah.
why would you do that kind of a thing? So definitely interesting. What about mistakes? We talk a lot about mistakes on this show,
Mm.
and do you have a mistake you could share with us about what happened and what'd you
Oh
learn
my
from it?
God. I could talk about that all day long.
Yeah, we only have like half an
Yeah.
hour.
The one that comes to mind, just to kind of like stay in the family business vein, is some of the mistakes I made early on with people. I it's difficult,
Yeah.
like being the second generation, you're held to a different standard. I didn't accept that right away.
Right.
I think I was a little entitled. I felt like I was smart enough, and I picked up on the business very quickly, and I knew what we needed to do.
Right.
And that's sort of all I thought about. I was like, come on, folks, like get on board.
Sure.
Some of the older people resented that. I was trying to change things. I was trying to make the business better.
Right.
And what I didn't realize is that because I didn't have full control, I had to earn their trust before I could get them to change.
Sure.
And, I struggled for a while because I was more of like a doer.
Yep.
I just bulldoze you.
Yeah.
And, because all I cared about was, say all I cared about, but, a big part of it was the accolades. And,
Sure.
saying, hey, look, Pop, this is what I did. Man.
Yeah.
I made an impact.
Mhm.
But it's funny because like, it's so funny how we try to do good things and then they have such an opposite effect. So like,
Yes.
I pissed everybody off around me, and then I kind of pissed him off too because
Right.
I'm kind of like, while he's probably proud that I'm making progress, I'm also like chipping away, or maybe like I think sometimes he heard, well, what you're doing is no good, right?
Mm.
I had to learn how to kind of plate everything a little bit better for people, so
Mhm.
that, or really just humanize, like just instead of worrying about all the time what's getting done,
Yeah.
just stop and be like, hey, you know, how's your day?
Yeah.
Right? Like just focus on the people side first and just get to know the person.
Yeah.
I kind of just assumed, I don't know, I kind of just skipped that part.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
When I used to work for a great company, they were wonderful like mentors to me. They were both entrepreneurs, and every Monday morning, one of the entrepreneurs would come in my office, and I was always get to work, put your head down, do what you gotta do, work your butt off. He would just sit down. He's like, "Hey, how's your weekend?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "It was great. How was your weekend?" And then we would talk for 20 minutes. He's like, "Hey, great conversation. Thanks so much." Now he
Yeah.
might do that maybe once every 2, 3 weeks, but he got to know me.
Yeah.
And the fact that I trusted him because of that, it was huge. And I know that I have to take the time with my team, and it's hard because I have an agenda. If I don't get that agenda done, all those emails done, I'm up again 1 o'clock
Right.
tonight. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. I'm like, let's get to bed a little earlier tonight.
Right. You're trying to take something personal and spontaneous and stick it in a schedule. It's kind of like those two things conflict. That's where I
Yes.
struggle, at least. Like,
And the listening skills go down. And
yeah.
so, and people
Yeah,
I've,
you're looking at the clock like, all right.
yes. That's actually on a ride here this morning, and someone said that this morning. She goes, "You know what I recognize, Marsh?" I said, "What?" She said, "People are listening not so much to listen to learn, but listen to talk."
Oh, 100%.
And I said, "You know what? You're right." She goes, "I've seen that much more. People don't really spend the time." And I remember growing up, and I would have my dad's friends would just stop by. I was in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sebastian Maniscalco has an amazing comedy routine about this.
Yeah, seeing
And
it's
have you
great.
seen? Yeah, it's great, right? Like, come on in,
I
and
love him. We're Italian family, so
ah, you
it
love that.
resonates with me. And the other
He's
side of my family is Greek, so like it's sort of the same.
oh, it's the best. And
Yeah.
and he was so right. You'd have the Sanka. Well, yeah, we had Sanka, and then you had the Entenmann's. Don't touch the Entenmann's. And
Yeah.
we were the same way.
Yeah.
Like leave that for the good people. And
Yeah.
and it was the funniest thing in life. And that people be there for 4 hours. And he's like, "Oh, well, it's so good to catch up with you." Nobody does that.
Yeah.
Nobody does that. We're so busy with our calendars and our schedules, and just to stop by to say hello. And growing up too, my next door neighbor lived by herself because her husband had passed away. He was like a huge mentor of mine, and I would come over to see my dad because I hadn't seen him all week. I'm working. I'm like, I'm here to spend time with you. Put your stuff down. Go next door. Say hi, Mrs. McCullough. So I would go over there, and she'd be like, "Hi, come on in." 3 hours later, I would leave, and she loved it. She was radiating. She told me about stories of growing up and this and that, and she'd ask about me and my world, and I would talk, and it was actually beneficial for both of us, and I didn't realize it, so much so, but he was always so proud when I came back, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go." Always, he's a Mike. His all his friends are Mike because my dad was Russian and all his friends are Greek. So he's like, "I'm going on to Mike's." I'm like, "I came over to say hi to you." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. We got each other. You good? We're good. We're good." And I said, "Okay." You saw Miss McCullough? You're good. And that's how it was. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But now at your own team, you have people on the road. You have people, because you do delivery of fuel.
Yeah.
And how do you find the time to do that now?
I think that's one of the things that I'll always be critical of myself because I have a natural, I don't know, I can be outgoing in certain scenarios. And in other scenarios I can be very introverted.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's with some of the blue collar stuff, some of the guys don't always understand boundaries.
Yeah.
So I may start the conversation and they may bring something that they probably shouldn't bring into the
Right.
conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for that reason, sometimes I'm reluctant,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll sort of pick my battles.
Sure. You have to.
You know, it's funny because there's a big part of the company now that I don't even know a lot of these guys. I know their names, I
Wow.
see them on payroll, but
Yeah.
we're a 24-hour operation. So some of these guys come in, in the middle of the day. I might be in the office, then they go drive all night, and then they come back in the middle of the
Wow.
night, right? And so I've tried to just make it a point when I see somebody in the yard, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you doing? Some of the guys that I've known for a long time, or like the heating wheel drivers, they all come and kind of congregate in the
Sure.
morning. So every once in a while, like I'll go to McDonald's and get 12, egg McMuffins,
Right.
and I'll come in and yo guys, here you go, and then we you know,
Yeah.
shoot the crap for a
Yeah.
little while and,
What
you
we
know,
do.
ask them how they're doing
Right.
and that's it. And then the office, it's funny because, you know, talking about my struggles in the business, like I always struggled less with the women in the office than I did with the drivers or the technicians. And what I learned is that those were the people who got to know me best
Yeah.
and got to trust me more quickly because they seen that
Yeah.
I was genuine and I
Yeah.
was trying to make an impact. And until I started really making an effort to try to get to know some of the other guys, like on a more personal level,
Sure.
they didn't.
Hmm.
And on a blue collar level, it's even more difficult, I think,
Totally.
for all those psychological kind of reasons,
Yeah.
you know, that I won't get into. But yeah, so it's scary too to think that like so I'm 35. I am the youngest person in our organization
Wow.
or close. There might be a few younger than me.
Yeah.
We have a really hard time hiring younger people.
Mm.
Um, and I think a lot about well, my kids, but you know, I think a lot about even just vendor relationships
Hmm.
and how things have changed in the last 3 years and whether I like them or I don't like
Hmm.
them and where things are going as far as hiring people and
Sure.
how our business is going to adapt to that. And we have this very boots on the ground blue collar business that
Yep.
struggles with all this technology and you know getting somebody who's 60 years old who does a really good job and understands your industry and is a great advocate for the company to understand that well maybe we need to start text messaging or emailing or it's really difficult
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're resistant to
Like
it
night and day.
but the young people don't I don't you going back to your example about going to the neighbor's house and having a conversation like that was we never wanted that but as I've gotten older you realize how important it is because it teaches you communication skills and how
Absolutely.
to listen
Yeah.
and how to appreciate anybody
Yeah.
really especially your elders and I'm not sure I see that anymore I'm not sure I see much respect at all but um I'm struggling with you know we I have one particular vendor that I can think of, like everything is Zoom. So I have to communicate with them via Zoom. And it's like, I just find myself being like, I wish I could just get in the room with these people. And the one woman I talked to, she's like not even in the country.
Hmm.
She's really great, and
Hmm.
the conversations are great, and they do a good job. It's just like we're missing this kind of like tangible relationship energy thing that
Yeah.
like doesn't go through the screen. And what I've noticed about their business is that they do everything Zoom. So it's very convenient for them. So they can go appointment to appointment to appointment to appointment. But I get on the call and I feel so rushed.
Mm.
And I'm like, I got a half an hour to try to be heard.
Yeah.
And that's I don't like that. I don't like
No.
that as a business owner. I don't
Right.
like that as a person. And anybody I talk to my age or younger, that's their preference. They're like, well, I don't want to
So how do you
just get on the Zoom.
your business is going to, continue because a lot of those people are going to retire. I mean, that is the biggest problem right now with a lot of my companies is the fact that they have a huge demographic that's going to retire soon, next 5 years.
Yeah.
And they're looking at like, oh my gosh, we have these young ones, but that work ethic is just not there. Not everybody. There's a good 2% of that does good work ethic, but there's not. I mean, have you guys put a plan together for succession to say that 10 times fast?
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, most companies haven't. They're just saying, "Well, I'll just make it happen when it happens," which I think is
Mhm.
really a bad move.
Yeah, well, I agree. It's one of those things that like in your business, you know, you need to work on,
Hmm.
but everything else gets in the way.
Like
I will
taxes.
say,
Go ahead.
yeah, sure. Um, I don't think we're doing an amazing job, but I don't think we're doing a horrible job.
Okay.
Um, from a secession plan, you know, between my dad and I think we have the important things in place.
Yeah.
Um, but it's difficult. It's
Yeah.
difficult to even have those discussions and
Sure.
to get the first generation to be I don't know, like make a clear decision around
Sure.
some of it. So there's that, and then there's you know the employee stuff, and You know, I think what's going to end up happening is the in our business,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's going to change by necessity, meaning like there's a lot of consolidation in our business
Mm-hmm.
because all of our competitors in a very similar scenario,
Yeah.
right? So we deliver fuel, we deliver heating oil, home heating oil. We know that's going away. We provide HVAC
Why is that
services.
going away?
Well, our government wants it to go away, and our state really wants it to go away. But it's just not the fuel source of choice
Oh,
anymore, right? So in the 70s, natural gas became sort of the adopted new fuel source,
got it.
and now it's electric.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure how they're going to pull that one off, but
They're not.
they haven't asked anybody who knows anything about it. But
Exactly.
we'll
Mm-hmm.
see. And so we know that that part of our business is
Are you all
declining.
petroleum? What kind of fuel would basically?
Yeah, so it's home heating oil, diesel fuel, which we call distillates. Like really, it's all the same product.
Right.
Just for tax purposes, they dye it. It used to be very different, but now the refining process has kind of been simplified.
Okay.
Um, it's about sulfur content and stuff like that. But
Got
the
it.
important thing is it all gets picked up the same place and it's generally the same thing,
Got it.
different color. We generally deliver distillates, home heating oil, dyed diesel fuel to off-road equipment, or on-road diesel to trucks, Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and then we do a little bit of gasoline. It's really more of hey, this customer needs gasoline because we do all these other things for them, so we do it for them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a business we really want to be in or grow. And
Why
we do
not?
more risk, more rules and regulations.
Hmm.
The margin isn't amazing.
Yeah.
It's when you start getting away from delivering diesel fuel and you start getting into delivering gasoline, we don't deliver long haul gas or like tractor trailer gasoline.
Right.
So there's like a really small market for gasoline in a straight truck
Oh
that
wow.
needs to be delivered. So
Yeah.
we kind of just do it to support what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
When you start getting into delivering gasoline like to gas stations,
Yeah.
um, whole different set of rules, criteria, margins,
Mm. Of
risks.
course there are. Probably. Yeah.
It's not a business I'm necessarily interested in
Yeah.
being in. And I have relationships in the industry, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
All these businesses are very difficult.
Sure.
Can't find drivers, can't find technicians, can't
And the
find
government
people.
wants to get rid of you. So I mean,
And the
that's
government
like,
wants to get rid
yeah.
of you. It's like we're standing in the middle of the field and there's just guns pointing at us from all angles. But the interesting thing about that is that it's given us a real opportunity
Sure.
because people bail out of businesses like that.
Yeah.
And so you get the opportunity to consolidate,
Mhm.
margins get better.
Right.
And if you're doing a good job, you can really excel.
Oh yeah.
And so that's really, what we tried to
Right.
focus on,
Mhm.
knowing that our business is under attack and there is probably a shelf life.
No.
But it's given us all these opportunities to acquire and grow. And
Yeah.
we've been able to grow every year for the last 5 years in a business that's declining by 10%, maybe even more.
Great.
It's
And what do
cool.
you attribute that to? That growth?
I think it's
Because of something.
the growth specifically
Mhm.
comes from two places. One, I think it's in our business, sophisticated marketing that most companies who were, my dad says this all the time, like, if you weren't involved, there'd be a fire sale, right?
Mhm.
You're not, when you're at that stage in the game and you work so hard for so long, and then you got to learn all these new things and you got to have people come in and tell you, oh, you need to do SEO or search engine marketing, or this is where you need to be advertising. And you got to try to figure out, like, you should try to understand something that's not something that you grew up really understanding.
Yeah.
I think it makes it difficult for them. So what happens is they lean on what worked for them.
Mhm.
And that stuff doesn't really work anymore. So people are looking for oil online, right?
Mhm.
We have a pretty strong presence online. I think we do that well. So
You do.
we bring a decent amount of customers in that way, just because Joe's Oil down the street.
Yeah.
They got 2 trucks and they're not doing that. So, you know, maybe they have a really strong relationship with Jan down the corner, and
Right.
that's been my provider forever. But maybe her daughter lives there now, and her daughter orders the oil next time. What's she gonna do?
Yeah.
She's gonna Google it, and we're gonna show up. And if we can do a good job
Yeah.
bringing that customer in, we'll pick them up. And our big thing is service, and response. And so there's that piece of it, right? And then there's the acquisition piece of it. And I think what makes us successful there is our model.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional model, multiples of EBITDA don't really work in our business.
Yeah.
Because it's so volatile,
Sure.
right? You could have a banner year because it's super cold. You could have a not so good year because it's super cold.
Sure.
You could lose customers because they're buying from somewhere else, or you
Right.
could lose customers because of natural gas. Like, it's very hard to measure how well you're doing. We put some things in place where we measure against the weather and stuff to try to normalize
Yeah.
it, but it's difficult. So for me to come in and say, okay, you made X the last 3-5 years, I'm
Yeah.
gonna pay you this for your business. Well, it's too volatile. We can't do that. So
Agreed.
um,
What's next though? What is next, for you guys? Because obviously with your dad potentially someday retiring and
Yeah.
then you taking over, I mean, do you see that? Do you see that for your kids? And I mean, it's not an easy decision. There's a lot of attributes out there, but it's figuring all those things out, right?
yeah. I think our commercial division is a side of the business that has a lot more longevity
Yeah.
and similar opportunities
Yeah.
that as the heating oil, because not a lot of players in the game,
Yep.
difficult barrier to
Sure.
entry. So I think that side of the business, the fueling,
Yep.
is definitely the future. The HVAC stuff. So we talk about this kind of life cycle of the heating oil customer, and then them potentially converting to natural gas or
Yeah.
electric. We have the capability to do that, and that
Right.
creates a certain amount of profit. We haven't really leaned into that.
Mhm.
We've been focusing more on dumping customers in the top of the funnel. So I think in the next 5 years, we need to figure out, okay, how do we take advantage of all these customers that we now
Yeah.
have and start making sure that we're very upfront about, hey, we can convert you if you want a different fuel source, and we can provide that for you,
Mhm.
and start building
Sure.
that out.
That's all cool. So you have two kids. They're very involved in ice hockey. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
You have, a very active place and work and all what you're trying to do. How do you take time for you?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I do a great job at that. Um, I play hockey still,
Oh, good.
so
Good.
I started, like, I used to work too many hours, and now I really I've gotten a more flexible schedule.
Good.
So I'll play ice hockey in the mornings,
Nice.
maybe once or twice a week if I can, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I I've gotten away from this, but I adopted like a morning routine where we have like a little makeshift gym that I made. So there was a lawnmower shop next to our facility
Right.
that we purchased, and we used some of the other space, park trucks and stuff. And so I went in there and like gutted it and painted it and turned it into a gym
Great.
when I was younger. So I use that. So that's like my sanctuary, going in there, just exercising, being alone,
Yeah.
maybe listening to a podcast, or
Right.
just it's my me time. So
What,
that's
well, talking about
my
podcasts,
routine.
do you do books or mostly podcasts?
I've done a mixture over the years.
Mhm.
So I started reading books,
Oh.
and then I had kids,
Okay.
and then that wasn't happening anymore. So then it was audiobooks.
Nice.
So that sort of transition. There's an app I found called Optimize. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
So this guy basically like reads these books
Yeah.
and then creates videos and audios that it's basically Cliff Notes, right? So it
Wow.
like gives you the Cliff Notes of the book.
Nice.
I'm like, well, this is cool because
Yeah.
when I do self-help stuff, like
Saves
if
me
I can
4 hours.
cram more information in the
Right.
brain more quickly.
We're all about it.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
3 books this morning.
That's awesome.
So I did that for a little while. It was a little limited, the range of kind of what he
Right.
was doing. Um, and then I started doing podcasts like kind of after that
Yep.
because you get bored.
Oh yeah.
So now it's a combination of all three.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll do them.
That's what I do.
I'll just do one.
Right.
Sometimes I'll do all three at the same time.
What are you reading right now?
Uh, the so oh my god, I'm trying to remember the name of it. She's a psychiatrist, psychologist.
This shouldn't happen to you, Mike. It only happens at my age,
I
not your
know.
age.
I don't have a very good memory. I have to write everything down. It's pretty bad. Um, I'd have to look. I forget. So the premise is this woman. So have you ever read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search
Oh
for
yeah.
Meaning? That book really changed my life. I would highly recommend that book to
Just
anybody.
wonderful best one of the top 10 books you should read.
Unreal, right?
Mhm.
So, another woman who experienced the Holocaust sort of talking about her account, but then also talking about her just ideology
Yeah.
around psychology.
Mhm.
I don't remember the name of the book. Off the top of my
Oh,
head,
so
but
good. I love hearing all this stuff. I know took a lot of your time. We try to make it easy for the listeners to be. It's usually from one place to another. They listen to our video, our audios, and to help them out with their entrepreneur. But there was a one word to give to an entrepreneur out there, somebody just starting out. What would that word be?
I'm thinking about me, the younger version of me. It's not one word, but it's close.
Okay, I'll take it.
Enjoy the journey.
Mm, good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never
Was there
takes a
one thing you
dime.
would changed going back 15 years in your life and said, you know what, 15 years ago, if I could have, I should have done this?
Yeah, I would have tried to play professional hockey.
No, well, really,
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's my husband who wanted to play professional baseball, so I totally get it. So sometimes I think he still think he's trying out, so it's all good.
Yeah, we all are. I don't think I would have made it, but I didn't put the effort in. I regret that.
Yeah, never know till you try it, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see. Well, Mike Longo Jr. from Seven Oil, how do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you're gonna hate this, but I'm horrible with social media 'cause I'm not crazy about it.
Hmm.
It's a big distraction or can be a big distraction for me. So, um, I don't have Facebook. I do have LinkedIn, and I will be somewhat responsive. But that's that in that way. That's probably the best way to get hold of me, or just email me or send me a message.
But it's Mike Longo Jr. So, I make sure people see a LinkedIn. I saw your LinkedIn profile. So
It's
there's a lot of
true.
Mike Longos out there, by the way.
There
So
really is. I don't
yeah.
know any of them.
Yeah.
So
See, it's
weird.
interesting. But I do have an amazing marketing company I'm going to introduce you to that's going to take that pain away from you so that they can focus on it for you instead. And actually will help you bring in probably some sales as well. So we'll talk about that later.
That would be awesome.
No problem. Thanks for joining us today. And thanks for being my guest on Top 3, where entrepreneurs share their secrets and their mistakes. And until next time, we will see you guys later. And have fun out there, entrepreneurs. You got this. Keep the faith. Take care.